notion of green banking in India. So, basically, we should understand the concept of green banking, which always involves the transformation from the profit-driven models to ones to integrating environmental, social, and governance factors. This approach recognizes that long-term health of the financial sector is inextricably linked to the well-being of the planet and society. In a country like India, which is highly vulnerable to climate change impacts and faces significant developmental changes, the role of banks in fostering sustainable development is paramount. In fact, green banking in India encompasses a wide range of initiatives, including both internal and the operational improvements and the development of new financial products and services. These initiatives are aimed at reducing the carbon footprint of banks themselves, and more importantly, influencing the investment and lending habits of their clients towards more sustainable practices. It is often said that green banking can be also termed as sustainable banking, blue banking, carbon financing, and sovereign financing, and bond financing also. This financial intermediation integrates environmental, social, and governance. In brief, we can call that ESG. Let me repeat once more. It always integrates environmental, social, and governance. ESG considerations into core strategy, risk management, product design, and disclosure. In practice, this means banks and other regulated entities mobilize capital towards environmentally beneficial projects, incorporate climate and social risk into credit and market risk frameworks, and report transparently on exposures, impacts, and outcomes. For India, whose development pathway is both energy intensive and climate vulnerable, sustainable banking is not just peripheral, it is a system level imperative linked to financial stability, transition finance, and long-term competence. In the last 5 years, India has moved from principal level commitments to increasingly specific regulations and market instruments. Notable milestones including RBI discussion paper on climate risk and sustainable finance in 2022 on July 27th, the framework for acceptance of green deposits, and a draft disclosure framework on climate-related financial risk in 2024, enhancement to priority sector lending, we call that PSL, for renewable energy, and the union government's sovereign green bonds programs, multiple tranches. Together, these developments are setting minimum expectations for governance, risk and use of proceeds, assurance, and impact measurement. In fact, this paper synthesizes the theory and practice in India across 6 lenses. For example, historical level, government, operational levels, initiatives, challenges, opportunities, future trends, and conclusion. Hence, we call that the green banking is purely a multifaceted in nature. It always involves operational sustainability, minimizing a bank's own conventional environmental impact through measures like paperless banking, energy efficient infrastructure, and waste reduction. In another way, we can assume that green banking would also consider product and service innovation, creating and promoting financial products that support green economy. This includes green loans for renewable energy products, electric vehicles, and green buildings, as well as green bonds and ESG focused investment funds. The another way is risk management, integrating environmental and social risk assessment into credit and investment decisions, which is very highest and significant parameter for the analysis of green banking on social concepts and environmental aspects. This helps banks identify and mitigate risks associated with climate change, such as stranded assets in carbon-intensive industries or regulatory penalties. The another significant aspect of green banking concept is, which will always take into consideration, is stakeholders engagement. Actively engaging with the clients, investors, and the public to raise awareness about the importance of sustainability and to encourage responsible financial behavior. So certainly we can identify that the operational sustainability, which we have identified, where the role of ATMs and waste reduction. Again, we have identified that the product innovation, creating financial products supporting green loans for renewable electric vehicles and green bulletins and ESG focused investment funds. As I mentioned that risk management, where the financial concepts, climate aspects, and social risk assessment need to be identified and it needs to be mitigated at the different levels. Again, we have found that the role of stakeholders cannot be kept in dark, as their roles are absolutely paramount. So let us move on to the historical evolution of green banking in India. The journey of green banking in India is a relatively recent phenomenon. No doubt, the very concept of green banking was coined by Reed Hundt and Ken Berlin in USA in 2008. Later, it has been percolated into the number of other countries. No doubt, the early stages when we get into the earlier stages of the industrial concepts or industrial economy, where their role has to be identified and examined through corporate social responsibilities. We call that CSR. Hence, CSR and philanthropic activities. The initial steps towards sustainable banking were largely driven by corporate social responsibility. In the early 2000s, some Indian banks began to engage in philanthropic activities related to environment, such as tree planting drives and community cleanup initiatives. These activities, while commendable, but they were separated from their own business operations. But they did not consider much importance to the financial concepts. Hence, though it was not given much upliftment for the growth of evolution, does not mean that it was highly neglected at the different stages. The role of international frameworks. The global push for sustainable finance, particularly the UN Global Compact's Who Cares Wins report in 2004, which introduced the term ESG, as I said once again, ESG, began to influence Indian financial institutions. This report highlighted the integrating ESG factors could create long-term shareholder value. So this is a very significant aspect. ESG factors has considered the value of shareholders, particularly in terms of stakeholders. Subsequently, international agreements and growing awareness of climate change risk further promoted discussions within India's financial sector. Later, the global ideas, principles, strategies, sessions have molded and tuned for the growth of green banking. So globally, sustainable banking has been shaped by initiatives such as ICMA Green Bond Principles. We call that a GBP. Let me repeat once more. Green Bond Principles. In brief, we can call that a GPP. And the Equitator Principles for Project Finance Risk Management and UNEP Finance Initiatives Principles for Responsible Banking. So once again, we stress more on responsible banking now. In India, these soft law frameworks influenced by voluntary actions by banks. For example, green bonds initiated by private and public sector banks and informed later regulatory steps. This has been very much stressed and informed by IFC and Amundi in 2024 Climate Bond Initiative in 2025. No doubt, RBI also recognized its early and the growth of green banking. The Reserve Bank of India, the country's central bank and financial regulator, play a crucial role in the early development of green banking. In 2007 and 2008 circular, RBI urged banks to consider their responsibility towards sustainable development, emphasizing the need for institutional mechanisms to address environmental and social concerns. Please remember, RBI has made it very clear in 2007 and 8 that all the banks will have to consider while granting loans and accepting deposits. They should keep in mind the sustainable concepts or eco concepts. This marked a turning point, moving discussion from voluntary CSR. See, it is started from CSR. So voluntarily CSR to more formal and regulatory driven agenda, which was very much clearly mentioned in the RBI bulletin of 2007. You must have witnessed the financial bubble or financial crisis in 2008. How that crisis must have created an opportunity for the growth of green banking. The global financial crisis highlighted the fragility of financial system, focused on short-term gains. This prompted a reevaluation of thinking practices and reinforced the need for more resilient and responsible model. In India, this crisis, coupled with the increasing urgency of climate change, catalyzed a more strategic and comprehensive approach to sustainable banking. Banks began to recognize an environmental and social risk were not merely external factors, but could also directly impact their financial stability. So this is how we have to understand the impact of financial crisis in 2008 on the evolution of green banking in India. Emergence of green products and services and other regulatory instruments. In the past decade, the focus has been shifted from internal operational efficiency to the development of full suite of green financial products. And many banks, both public and private, followed by green concepts and e-statements to customers. This evolution reflects a growing understanding that sustainable banking is not just about going green internally, but about actively financing the transition to a sustainable economy. Government and regulatory instruments. The Indian government and RBI have been proactive in creating supportive policy and regulatory environment for sustainable banking. Their initiatives are crucial for mainstreaming green finance and ensuring its alignment with national climate goals. The green banking products and its coverages. One should understand in which are the areas where green banking products covers. For example, green mortgage, green loans, green credit cards, green saving accounts, green checking accounts, green CDs, mobile banking, online banking, and remote deposits. These are the areas where financial products being covered, keeping in view of environment or eco concepts. Certainly, one should always understand which are the areas where activities of green banking in India have been initiated at the banking levels. For example, ICICI, please note ICICI, small mistakes in the, it has come T in the PPT. It is supposed to be ICICI. ICICI Banks. ICICI Banks Green Initiative aimed at customers are driven by the objective of collaborating with each of the customers, making green a part of all the lives. These initiatives range from green offerings, incentives, green engagement to green communication to the customers. Green products and services provided by ICICI Bank are Insta Banking. Let me repeat, Insta Banking, launched by ICICI. It is a platform that brings together all alternate channels under one umbrella and gives customers the convenience of banking anytime, anywhere throughout internet banking. We can also call that internet mobile banking or IVR banking. This reduces the carbon footprint of the customers by ensuring they do not have to resort to physical statements or travel to their branches. Another significant of ICICI Bank with regard to green banking is vehicle finance. As an initiative towards the more environment-friendly way of life, Auto Loans offers 50% waiver on processing fees on car models which uses alternate mode of energy. The models identified for the purpose are Maruti's LPG version of Maruti 800, Omni and Versa, Hyundai's Santro Eco, Civic Hybrid of Honda, Reva electric cars, Tata Indigo CNG, Mahindra Logan CNG versions. Each car that hits the road impacts the environment. Make an informed choice for better earth. Another aspect of ICICI Bank is home finance. ICICI Home Finance offers reduced processing fees to customers who purchase homes in leadership in energy and environmental design. In brief, we can call that LEED, LEED, certified buildings. This is the journey of ICICI Bank and the growth of ICICI Bank towards green banking in India. Still, many more programs are in the pipeline before the ICICI Bank. Let us know the role of SBI. SBI to set up and launched Green Rupee Term Deposits. Let me repeat once more. Green Rupee Term Deposits. In brief, we can call that SGRTD. SGRTD. So, Green Rupee Term Deposits. These deposits are available for in different phases. So SBI has set up windmills as a mark of green banking in 3 Indian states, seeking to promote green energy as part of its green banking policy. The windmills in 3 states are Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, and Gujarat. A total of 15 megawatt of power is expected to be generated through the new mills in these states as part of the project. Bank sources said in the southern states of Tamil Nadu, a windmill would be set up at Panapatti village in Coimbatore districts. Again, in Maharashtra and Gujarat, where the capacity of 9 MW and 1.2 megawatt of power generation, respectively. So the windmill project is an effort to provide an environment-friendly green power as a substitute to polluting thermal power. The another role played by banks in India is Indus India Bank, most significant one with regard to green banking. Indus Ind Bank, it opened the country's first solar-powered ATM. Please note, this is the first bank in India introduced first solar-powered ATM. Hence, credit goes to Indus India Bank for having introduced solar-powered ATM. An eco-civic change in India's banking sector. The picture is, I hope the picture is very much visible in the PPT of Indus India Bank, which launched solar power bank. The fourth one is HDFC Bank. How the Indian private financial institutions are playing a major role in promoting the concept of green banking. HDFC Bank has provided green tips to promote green banking in order to save more of trees, purchase recycled paper, print on reusable sheets, print multiple pages on single sheets of paper, set defaults to print double sides and print on both sides. So naturally, the documents and the changes in the default font size from 12 to 20 feet, which shrink documents by 10%. That shows that how the HDFC banks have been very much initiated into the journey of eco concepts. The another bank is Yes Bank, though I am not able to show it in the PPT. Yes Bank. Yes Bank is the first Indian bank which introduced or launched green bond, in 2015. So number of the green bond schemes have been introduced at the different stages. No doubt these are the operations and activities initiated. Let us briefly know that the recent regulatory measures introduced at the different levels. The Reserve Bank of India initiatives the guidelines on climate risk. In 2022, the RBI released a paper on climate risk and sustainable finance, which laid out the roadmap for banks to address climate-related financial risk. It emphasized the need for banks to develop robust governance frameworks, risk management strategies, and disclosure-related climate changes. As I mentioned earlier that private sector lendings, RBI has incorporated renewable energy and related infrastructure into private sector lendings. This mandates a certain percentage of banks' total credit to be directed towards these sectors, providing a strong incentive to finance green projects like solar, wind, and biomass energy. And issuance of sovereign green bonds. The Government of India, in consultation with the RBI, has issued sovereign green bonds to mobilize resources for green infrastructure projects. Let me repeat once more. The Government of India, in consultation with the RBI, has issued sovereign green bonds to mobilize resources for green infrastructure projects. This is not only provides a credible benchmark for green finance, but also attracts a new class of investors interested in ESG compliant assets. And number of the pilots on green deposits. RBI has proposed a framework for green deposits, which allows banks to raise funds specifically for green projects. This initiative aims to provide transparency and assurance to depositors that their money is being used for environmental beneficial purposes. Another milestone is SEBI, Securities and Exchange Board of India. SEBI, the capital market regulator, it has played a major role in maintaining the eco-concepts with regard to banking, business responsibility and sustainable reporting. SEBI has mandated the top 1,000 listed companies provide their annual reports only in e-papers rather than physical papers. And the Government of India schemes like Pradhana Mantri Kisan Urja Suraksha even Uttan Maha Abhiyan, we call that PM Kusum. This scheme provides financial assistance to farmers for installing solar pumps and solar power plants, creating significant demand for bank financing in the solar energy sector. Another one is National Green Hydrogen Mission. This mission aims to make India's global hub for green hydrogen production and exports. The large-scale investment required for this mission will be a major driver of green finance. Faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicles, we call that FAME. FAME scheme provides subsidies to encourage the adoption of electric vehicles, EVs, leading to surge or increase in demand for EVs loan from banks. Growth and impact of green banking on financial inclusion. It is better to know that are we able to keep the vision of green banking to achieve the goal of financial inclusion? As we discussed many times, the financial inclusion at the different stages. The growth of green banking and financial inclusion. The growth of sustainable and green banking in India is visible through increasing participation of banks in financial literacy, rural credit delivery, green banking initiatives. Public sector banks such as SBI and private banks, as I mentioned that ICICI, HDFC, Yes Bank and number of other banks targeting women, small entrepreneurs, farmers and marginalized communities. Moreover, Pradhana Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana in collaboration with the commercial banks enabled the opening of over 500 million bank accounts, thereby creating a foundation for sustainable financial inclusion in India. We have to identify that how financial inclusion can be achieved. It could be always identified through parameters like accessibility. Another one is equity. The third one is environmental and social governance. The fourth one is technology or digital inclusion. Based on this, we can identify that are we able to see the goal of financial inclusion through the incorporation of green banking. When it comes to accessibility, sustainable banking has accessibility of credit and financial services to rural households, small and medium entrepreneurs, empowering them economically. According to World Bank Report 2020, the another one is social equity. By focusing on microfinance, self-finance, women self-help groups, marginalized communities, banks have promoted equitable financial participation, which has been identified in the article developed by Kaur and Kapoor in 2021. With regard to environmental and social governance, we call that ESG. Integration of ESG principles ensures that credit flows to environmentally sound and socially responsible projects. This is the most important aspects. Environmentally sound and socially responsible projects, because it should not harm the welfare of the people. So creating long-term sustainable impact, which was identified by the financial inclusion by UNEP in 2016. The another parameter for identifying the goal of financial inclusion through green banking is digital inclusion. Sustainable banking has promoted digital platforms like mobile banking, UPI, and Aadhaar-enabled payments, reducing cost and improving financial penetration in remote areas, which has been very much identified and found an article in the RBI bulletin in 2022. Let us know briefly the challenges in implementing the sustainable or green banking concepts. So what are the major barriers which may hamper the growth of green banking in India? The key barriers are lack of standardized framework and metrics. One of the most significant challenges in the absence of universally accepted and standardized framework for measuring the reporting ESG performance in India. So this lack of standardization can lead to greenwashing from green banking. Let me repeat once more. This will move into greenwashing from green banking, where banks or their clients make exaggerated claims about their sustainable practices without a genuine and measurable impact. This erodes trust among investors and the public. Another drawback is data and disclosure gaps. Many Indian companies, especially small and medium-sized enterprises, lack of resources and expertise to collect and report reliable data on ESG. This makes it difficult for banks to accurately assess the environmental and social risk of their lending portfolios. The absence of credible data hinders the development of sophisticated ESG risk models. The another challenge is transition risk. The transition to low carbon economy poses significant financial risk for banks with the large exposure to carbon intensive sectors like coal, oil, and gas. As the regulations tighten and public opinion shifts, these assets could become stranded, leading to loan defaults and decline in asset values. Managing this transition risk requires cautious and phased approach. Another drawback or challenge is high initial costs. Implementing sustainable practices such as investing in new technologies or paperless banking or developing complex ESG risk assessment models always requires significant initial capital expenditure. This can be a determinant for, this could be a deterrent for smaller banks or those with limited financial resources. Another drawback is lack of awareness and capacity building. There is a need for greater awareness among bank employees, clients, and the public about the importance of sustainable finance. Many employees lack the technical knowledge to assess the environment risk, and customers may not have a knowledge of the benefits of green financial products. No doubt we have identified a number of the challenges, but still we do find a silver line. At the end of the tunnel, we always find silver line for green banking concepts. So what are the opportunities for green banking in India are? Let us know very briefly. Growing market for green finance. Growing market for green finance. The Indian government's ambitious climate goals such as achieving net zero by 2070 and installing 500 gigawatts of non-fossil fuel capacity by 2020 create massive market for green finance. The International Energy Agency estimates that India would require more than $4 trillion in green investment 2040. This presents an enormous opportunity for banks to finance renewable energy, energy efficiency, and clean transportation. Another opportunity is innovation and fintech. We call that innovation and fintech or financial technology. The challenges related to data and reporting are fertile ground for financial technology and innovation. Startups are developing artificial intelligence powered tools. Let me repeat. Startups are developing artificial intelligence powered tools and blockchain solutions to help bank automated ESG data collection, verify green credentials, and manage climate risk. This collaboration between traditional banks and fintech companies can create more transparent and efficient green finance ecosystems. Another opportunity where we can find is enhanced risk management and resilience. By integrating ESG factors, banks can improve their long-term risk management, assessing climate-related risk and social impacts helps banks to identify potential vulnerabilities in their portfolios, leading to mere resilient and stable operations. This proactive approach not only protects against future shocks, but also strengthen their reputations. Because there shall not be any shock or any kind of a cyclical imbalance while approaching the green banking concepts. Another opportunity is competitive advantage and brand building. Banks that are leaders in sustainable finance can gain a significant and competitive advantage. They can always attract a growing segment of socially conscious customers and investors who prioritize ESG factors. Being a green bank can enhance brand reputation, build customer loyalty, and attract top talent. So top talent can be always pooled. Another opportunity is, as I mentioned earlier, that financial inclusion. Sustainable banking can be a powerful tool, or green banking can be a powerful tool for promoting financial inclusion by providing microloans for clean energy solutions. Clean energy solutions. For example, solar lanterns and small scale sustainable agriculture, not large scale agriculture, small scale sustainable agriculture. And banks can also empower rural communities and support the transition to more equitable society. This is how we can identify that more opportunities can be anticipated through the role of green banking. So what are the prospects which may lie for the growth of sustainable banking in India? The landscape of such growth and development of green banking in India is evolving rapidly, driven by a combination of regulatory pressures, market forces, and technological advancements. The future will always see a deeper integration of sustainability into every facet of banking. The future, like we do identify some of the areas like mainstreaming of ESG, or we call that ESG mainstreaming. Environment and socially governance, ESG. ESG will move from being a separate niche function to a core part of banks' risk management and strategic planning. Banks will always increase and employ sophisticated models to quantify and price climate and social risk. I know that we do wonder that how this kind of concept can be evaluated. It could be always identified and evaluated through the role of research and development at the banking levels. When the banks do not enjoy or possess sophisticated research and development focusing on eco concepts, then purpose will not be served at all. So banks will have to use, once again, let me repeat, banks will have to employ and use sophisticated models, because banks will have a major role now. So banks will have to evaluate the review of literature and the empirical analysis which developed by number of other countries, like Australia was the first country globally to introduce global banking. Later, France, Netherlands, a number of other countries have evolved. In this regard, this will have to be supported by data analytics and artificial intelligence, which can always process vast amounts of unstructured data to generate actionable insights. Another area which we can find the future trend of the green banking is digitalization as a catalyst. The push for green banking will always accelerate the digitalization of financial services from paperless banking to digital lending platforms. Technology will be the enabler Future trends will always include the use of blockchain for transport tracking, for transparent tracking of green bonds and sovereign green bonds and blue bonds, and the creation of digital marketplaces for sustainable projects. See, now once again banks will have a major role now, keeping the digital concepts and the technological concepts. So another area where we can see the future trend for the growth of green banking is focusing on social and governance dimensions. See, the focus should be more on social and governance dimensions. While the initial focus has been on E, we can call that environment, E of ESG. The future will always see greater emphasis on S, indicates social. So S and G, let me repeat once again, the future will be always examined more on S and G, that indicates social and governance aspects. So banks will play a major role and crucial role in promoting financial inclusion, gender equality, and ethical business practices. The focus will shift the holistic understanding of a bank's impact on society. So that could be achieved. Another interesting aspect through this evaluation of green banking, through which what we can understand is blended finance and public-private partnerships. Let me repeat once more. Blended finance and PPP model or public-private partnership to finance the large-scale green infrastructure projects, to finance the large-scale green infrastructure projects needed for India's transition. There will be an increased reliance on blended finance. This involves combining public funds from development finance institutions with the private capital to de-risk projects and make them more attractive to private investors. So banks will act as key intermediaries in these partnerships. Now the question before us, how PPP model can operate? Can we anticipate the role of public and private partnership in fostering the concept of green banking in India in future? So this will be the major task before us to ponder over it. Or we can think that this will be the major task to think over the concept in a very systematic and in a very research manner. So unless I understand we have the role of a PPP model, so we cannot anticipate the maximum benefits of green banking in India, because we have a number of lacunas, we have a number of difficulties, which we have identified at the different peripherals. No doubt, other than difficulties, still we find that more opportunities and future trends like climate-related financial disclosures, climate-related financial disclosures. Following global trends, Reserve Bank of India and SEBI will likely to introduce more standardized reporting requirements for the climate-related financial disclosures. So the other day, the bulletins of RBI and the resolution passed by SEBI in India identified that if you want to achieve the growth and prosperous of green banking at different stages, there is a need for adopting the role of transmittary activities and digital concepts at different stages and at the different levels. For example, at the primary levels, secondary levels, and at the tertiary levels, being operated by number of the people through occupations. I hope many of you must have understood the concept. So this will force banks to be more transparent about their exposure to climate risk and their progress towards sustainable finance targets. So let me repeat once more. What is the need for assessing the climate risk? Because climate risk are very much associated with the agriculture concepts, where majority of the people are engaged in agriculture as a way of life. In turn, financial inclusion, human development, livelihood, consumption expenditure can be always enhanced by indulging or by getting into the financial stream of the nation. This could be possible only through green banking concepts. The another aspect which you have to identify is emergence of nature positive finance. Beyond simply reducing carbon emissions, the banking sector will increasingly focus on nature positive finance. This involves financing projects actively contribute to the restoration of biodiversity, soil health, and clean water. Let me repeat once more. This is a very significant aspect, the last part, nature positive finance. This involves the financing projects that actively contribute to the restoration of biodiversity, soil health, which is very significant for the growth of agriculture, and clean water for the people of the nation. So this new frontier will always require innovative financial products. This will always require innovative financial products and a deeper understanding of ecosystem services. So in conclusion, green banking or sustainable banking is a critical component of the nation's journey towards a sustainable and resilient future. It has evolved from nascent philanthropic concept to a strategic imperative driven by a confluence of global trends, a supportive regulatory environment, and the growing recognition of climate and social risk. The initiatives by the Reserve Bank of India and the government have laid a sound foundation encouraging banks to not only improve their internal operations, but also to actively finance the green transition, while The sector faces significant challenges, including lack of standardized framework, data gaps. These hurdles are being met with the wave of, let me repeat once more, these hurdles are being met with the wave of innovation and new opportunities. The future of green banking in India is poised for exponential growth fueled by technological advancements, a growing demand for green products, a deeper integration of ESG principles into core banking practices. Let me repeat once more. The future of green banking in India is poised for exponential growth fueled by technological advancements, demand for green products, deeper integration of ESG products into core banking practices. The continued commitment of all stakeholders, the continued commitment of all stakeholders like banks, regulators, government, and the public will be vital in ensuring that India's financial system remains robust, responsible, and aligned with the long-term goals of a sustainable and most significant manner. I thank all the participants for being a part of this session.